Hello, Winthrop. My name's Tony Marino. I'm your town manager, and I'm joined here with Fire Chief Scott Wiley and Council President Jim Letterie. We're here today to talk about the proposed fire station on Winthrop Street. There's been a lot of discussion about it. We've certainly had plenty of public meetings on it, and we got a big one tonight on September 11th over at the high school auditorium. We wanted to have this show and keep it short and sweet to about 30 minutes to talk about some of the things we've been hitting at the public meetings in case people missed it, but we wanted to make sure the information got out there, and not knowing how people like their information, we certainly wanted to have a cable TV show as an option for you. So I'm going to pass it off to the fire chief right now to kind of give an overview of some of the fire stations he's visited and some of the things that he liked and didn't like about them, because he gave a really good overview, which you can see on WCAT, I believe. Yeah, Chief did a show last week about it, and there is some video footage and some PowerPoint presentation. But Chief, what did you, why don't you let us know where you went?
Thanks, Tony. I went to Lexington Fire Headquarters on Bedford Street in Lexington.
Okay.
One of the reasons, well, there were actually two reasons why we went there. One, it's considered the gold standard of firehouses in the Metro Boston area. We hold our Metro Chief meetings there once a month. It's a spectacular facility. It's a little bit smaller than what we were looking at, 26,000 square feet at a cost of about $20 million versus what we're looking at, which is about 35,000 square feet. But the other reason we went to Lexington was it's in a historic district. It's a block from Lexington Battle Green, probably the most historic site in the country, and it's a spectacular building that fits the neighborhood. Winthrop Street, the proposed area here in Winthrop, is also a historic district. If you go to the web page that we have, www.winthropfirestation.com, or you can find it on YouTube or WCAT. I did a presentation of that station, as well as Woburn Fire Headquarters, which we went to. Lexington is in the historic district and really would fit, something like it would fit this neighborhood. Woburn Fire Headquarters, while it's dramatically different on the exterior, had some really nice, obviously 21st century standards, and met the standards and requirements of a brand new fire station. And if you went to that website, YouTube, or the WCAT website, you would see some of the, specifically the decontamination areas, the size of the apparatus bays, their ability to store reserve apparatus and all of their equipment indoors. We would certainly have the ability to do that now versus what we actually, in the future, versus what we actually do now.
That's great. And one of the things that came out of all of this, and we really want to stress it, is, the building that we show, the facsimile building, and what Kessel and Boos has brought forward is not what the building's going to look like when it's done. We really want to stress that. We understand it's in a historical district. Kessel Boos was hired to do a feasibility study, and it's their responsibility to bring it forward to make sure that what the components that we need, and I always like to say, think of it like Lego blocks. Like, these are all the pieces we need to make a great fire station and something that's going to last for the 21st century and beyond. But how we put it together and what it looks like at the end is going to be completely up to the community, with an architect that may or may not be Kessel and Boos, because it'll have to go out to bid again, and we may end up picking another architect, and then it'll be their vision, and it'll really work like the Lexington Fire Station, I believe, right? And really fit the historic district of Winthrop. So we're excited about that. Now let's talk a little bit about the site. One of the things that we sort of heard early on is the Wadsworth building has a lot of tenants in it. I believe there's 10 in there. One of the one everybody wanted to talk about was the meat market. But there's also the barbershop, a small real estate office. There's the Harbor City Church. I mean, there's a lot of great businesses in town. But everybody needs to be rest assured, all those businesses are going to be able to stay in Winthrop. That's the council's goal. That was what I was tasked with. We're working on an alternative location for the meat market now. We've had conversations with the church. We're going to reach out to the other tenants. I know the landlord has had talks with them. But we're not losing those businesses. I know a lot of people have said, oh, you're going to lose the businesses, and we're not. They're going to just go to another location in Winthrop, and we're working to make that happen, through the legal process and the moral obligation that we have. The other piece that we've heard a lot about is the old middle school site. And that gets into, the due diligence that's been going on for the last 4 or 5 years here. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to the council president so we can talk about some of the sites that we've looked at and, why the middle school site is not an option, for the fire station.
Thanks, Tony. Yes, since 2016, 2017, we've been looking at various sites. Some of them town-owned, some of them private. We've looked at sites like the Little League A field. We looked at the Winthrop golf course on the 7th hole. We've looked at the tennis courts, basketball courts on Walden Street. We've looked at the old Muffintown location. We've looked at, obviously, the middle school. We looked at the existing fire stations. We have really done our due diligence on that. We actually had 2 proposals back in 2018 and 2020. One was on the Little League A field and the other on the 7th hole of the golf course. There were just so many limitations with both those sites. The cost was extremely high. Being in the flood zone was a major factor. The size of the lot in terms of the 7th hole was a huge factor. So, you know, when this opportunity came, and again, we weren't out searching, knocking on doors, asking if we could buy your property. These were willing sellers who notified the town, and then we reached out. And it was just a perfect opportunity because it just checks so many of the boxes. Any project we've looked at over the last several years, and I mean, this isn't something new. This goes back to the '97 when they started this in earnest, and it goes back well before that. But in the recent past, when we've been looking at locations, it's, you know, to have a location that is going to check as many boxes as possible, and nothing is going to check every box, but we really honestly feel that this location does that. It gives us the availability and the opportunity to make this a public safety building, and that's the goal. So it gives us the ability to connect the 2 buildings. We will be having a presentation at our public forum on September 25th. There'll be a presentation of phase 2 of this project, which would occur a few years away, but it will show the opportunity that we're going to have to connect this proposed fire station with the police station and the enhancements and improvements we would make to the police station to then make it a complete public safety facility. There's so much that goes into this, not only the location, the cost is another huge concern of ours, and the availability of our taxpayers. There's a huge burden put on the taxpayers of Winthrop. We're not fortunate like other cities and towns in the state where we have a lot of commercial business and they take up a big chunk of those real estate taxes. The burden is on the residential payers, so we're very cognizant of that. And we looked at this project and we thought doing it in 2 phases would be the best opportunity for the town, the most cost-effective opportunity of the town. The chief talked a little bit about Lexington and Woburn, and you're looking in Lexington Station to open in 2020. It started in 2017, so when that project started, it was roughly a $22 million project. It's about 8,000 square feet less than what we have. But if you bring in a cost factor of about 8% a year and do the square footage cost, it's exactly where we are now, and the cost of prolonging this and going 3, 4, 5, 10 years into the future is just astronomical for the citizens. And you just never know what's going to happen. In 1997, we did a study. There's been so many studies done, but in 1997, there was a study done, and they said, you know what, we're not going to do it now, but we're going to go next. And then what happened in 2000 was the Fort Bank School came up, and the opportunity was there, and the town took it, and it was a great thing. And then the fire station was going to be next, and then in 2002, the ATC school came on, and that was a great thing. But it says fire station will be next. And then in 2008, you hit a major recession. And then we come out of the recession, and then the opportunities there to build a new middle high school. You just never know what the future holds. This is the best opportunity on the best site, checks the most boxes, and again, we're trying to think of Winthrop's future. And sometimes you want to protect the past as well as going into the future, but we have to be cognizant of everybody's needs and do what we feel is the prudent thing to do for this town. And public safety, you know, people talk about education, and that's, you know, to me, one of the most important things of the town. But public safety, you can't have anything without public safety. And the conditions that our current firefighters are working in are just deplorable, decrepit. They don't meet any standards. So, you know, we really hope you learn more about this project. We're not telling you have to vote yes. We're just telling you to learn about it and be aware of all the facets of it.
Thanks, Jim. You know, and then Jim talked about cost. We didn't really talk about the totals, but I mean, this is going to be anywhere from a $35 to a $40 million project. When you get in the voters box on November 7th, there's going to be a ballot question on there, and it's going to ask you, do you authorize the town council to have a debt exclusion for a Prop 2.5 debt exclusion, which allows us to go over the, Proposition 2.5, which you can't raise the taxes more than 2.5, to do this building. And it'll be to design, construct, purchase property at the, Wadsworth building site located on Winthrop Street. There won't be a dollar value in there, and that's done because, that's how these projects work, and you don't put a dollar value on the ballot question. What you're authorizing the town to do is to go ahead and, purchase the property we need to purchase and design and construct a new fire station on this site. And we are excited. We've asked Kessel and Booth to take a look at, like Jim said, attaching what a proposed addition and a remodel of the existing police station would look like by attaching a bridge to the two buildings so they'll be connected. So that will truly be a nice state-of-the-art public safety complex, for the foreseeable future. So one of the other issues that has come up a lot is not only the cost factor, but the access out onto Winthrop Street. So as you saw on the plans that have been online, if you've been paying attention, the reason we picked that site is because the depth of the lot, not only where the Wadsworth building is, but the lot where Kirby's funeral home is, and the depth of the lot allows us to move the building back and keep that 100-foot buffer that we need to get apparatus in and out. And we've taken a look at, based on the council's recommendations, we've taken a look at turning radiuses. We've taken a look at like our ladder truck, our largest piece of equipment, that it can make those turns. And we're not going to have to lose any of the corners there. I know we've got a, I forget the name of it, the Metcalf Square. Thank you, with the Veterans Memorial there. We're not going to have to lose any of that because we can make all those turns and make the swing out. So this project is coming for your vote on November 7th. We're excited about it. There's going to be many more public hearings. And we're looking forward to answering those questions, getting the information out to the public, and hopefully allowing you to make a decision, what you think is in the best interest of the town of Winthrop on November 7th.
And Tony just mentioned mentioned the site a little bit more, and I want to go back into, Tony also mentioned cost again, and just a little explanation again. Some people get confused when talk about a debt exclusion versus a Proposition 2.5 override. A Proposition 2.5 override increases your taxes forever, where a debt exclusion is to pay for a specific bond. So it's kind of like paying for a mortgage. And for example, we've had debt exclusions on the Fort Bank School, which we just paid off last year, so that drops off the tax rolls. We have a debt exclusion on the ATC school, which will come off the tax rolls next year, and that will lower the taxes. We have a debt exclusion for Miller Field, which will be coming off in the beginning of the 2030s. And then finally, we have a debt exclusion for the middle high school, which will come off the tax rolls in 2040. So these are not tax increases that go on in perpetuity. These are tax increases for a specific period of time. And if you go to the website again, and we'll mention it, and we've mentioned it already, and I'm hoping it's going to be scrolling on the bottom of the screen, but if you go to www.winthropfirestation.com, there are different pages there. One of the pages is a finance piece. We wanted to be very transparent with that to let people know what their tax burden would be with this project. So there is if you go to the finance tab on the website, you could put in your assessed value of your house. It will show you the increase. Now, the increase would not take effect next year. This probably wouldn't fully hit the tax rolls until fiscal 26. When you do a project of this magnitude, you will borrow a little at a time as needed. We also put a tab underneath that will show you the net effect once the ATC school comes off the tax rolls, and then Miller Field comes off the tax rolls shortly after the project started. So it's an interactive piece that we think you'll really find informational, and we hope you take a look at that. And back to Tony.
All right. Thanks, Jim. One of the things that Jim talked about there was the cost, right? And talking about the different time frames when the debt's going to fall off. So that's really the strategy of it all, and that's what the council's been working on, because it was done intentionally in phases for that reason. So as you bring on new debt, to not overly burden the taxpayer with a huge tax increase for an $80 million complex versus what this would be, 35 to 40 million, and then wait for some of that debt to drop off as we bring the police station on in the near future. So there is some methodology behind what we're trying to do here. And with that, Chief, did you want to add anything else?
I just wanted to add, there was, as far as the selection of this site, they did start off approximately 5 years ago with about 10 sites to look at. Each one of those was knocked off the list for various reasons. Some were in flood zones, some were too small, some didn't meet the, they had wetland issues, but they settled on the Pauline Street. Castle Booz and the architects settled on the one proposal was connecting the existing police station to the existing fire station. That caused for significant disruption of services from the fire department for a couple of years, 2 to 2.5 years during the construction. We would have to relocate the fire department temporarily. It also involved taking 3 pieces of property on Pauline Street and 3 pieces of property on Burrell Terrace. Those were hostile takings. That was going to be difficult and time-consuming, as the manager stated. Every year that this project gets delayed, it kicks up the increase 8 to 10%. What's expensive now would be even more expensive in the future. One of the things that was brought up, and we just like to reiterate, was the plans that have gone on through the years, the different proposals that were made. There was a study done in 1991. There was 1993. There was a study done in 1997. I ran into a retired lieutenant from the department the other day who told me 60 years ago, when he started, one of his first jobs in the fire department was to go to Boston and get the plans for the new station that they were going to build on Revere Street, which obviously didn't happen, and that was 60 years ago. And the 1997 study in the executive summary section said that rehabbing the 2 existing stations was not an option due to the fact that there were such small footprints. The center station's only 6,000 square feet. The Shirley Street Station's only 8,000 square feet. There's really no room for expansion in either one, or expansion for the department going forward. The plan in 1997 was a single fire station on Kennedy Road at a cost of $3.5 million. They obviously didn't do that. They went a few years later with the Fort Bank School in that area. What was $3.5 million then is now $35 to $40 million. We can't afford to wait years longer down the road. The cost of this goes up 8 to 10% every year.
As we were talking about that, I want to hit some timeline things, because we're talking about costs and how costs increase the longer we wait. So I wanted to lay out what the time frame would happen and what the next steps would be if we get an affirmative vote, on November 7th. If that were to happen, the next step as we move forward to acquire the 2 properties. Given the time frame to do the eminent domain process and work through, that would probably happen sometime around January. During that time frame, we would also be hiring what's called an OPM, or an owner's project manager, for the town. This is a company that works for us, that looks out for our interests, and will help us, once that company is picked, it will help us in picking and putting out to bid for the architecture and the design piece of this. And then once that's bid out, which will probably take till January, February time frame, we would start designing the building. There'll be plenty of public meetings involved. The fire station building committee would be involved, and we'd move forward with getting to how the building's going to look, taking all the historical aspects into effect and giving the fire department really a building that's going to last them for a long time into the future. And then once that's done, so assuming that's all done, tenants are moved out, we'd look to probably sometime, during the summertime or fall months of 2024, we would look to start the demolition process and then start the construction process of the new fire station. We're excited to do this. Should we the voters agree with us, and we'll move forward with the project. And Council President Letterie, do you have anything else?
Yeah, just to go on that timeline again, and for people who are out there who are concerned about the businesses, and as Tony said, we're looking actively, and we're going to fulfill our commitment to make sure all those businesses that want to be relocated will be relocated. And we talk about the timeline. We have a legal obligation, once we do purchase the buildings, let's say in January, to have tenants stay there up to 4 months, which is legal. But we would be more than willing, I'm sure, to extend that. It's a process. This whole thing is a process. And we have, again, not only a legal obligation, but a moral obligation. And part of our legal and moral obligation also is to help with the relocation costs for these businesses, which we would absolutely 100% do. And when we look at this project, from the beginning, I've always thought there were 4 things that we really have to make the citizens understand and try to get their approval for this, because this, first of all, this is a project we cannot do without your support. And the town cannot get the new fire station without your support. This is not a decision we could do regardless of how you vote. And to me, there was always 4 things that were just so important in this. And one was to prove that there's a need for this. Another was to help understand the cost of this and the effect for each of the individual taxpayers. Another was obviously to make sure that we can relocate these businesses and make people understand that we're doing the best thing possible for these businesses. And the last thing was to try to explain the other site that seemed to be coming up so much, which was the middle school. As far as the middle school goes, the council made a presentation at our previous meeting. We will go over much more detail into that. I think it's a project that is, first of all, it's long overdue. It's been 7 years, but it's a project that will bring bring revenues into the town. It will bring economic stimulus for businesses, and it will also not burden any of our departments, especially the school system. The third thing we had to show is the need for the building, which I think if we could get something that's pretty much 100%, I think that it's pretty close to 100% that there is a need. The conditions that these firefighters are working in and day out is deplorable. They're not up to standards. It concerns me every day that we don't get a phone call from somebody and take action with the conditions that they have. But the need is there. The middle school, we're proposing a project that I've actually been working on longer than we've been working on this. The cost of the building is, like the chief said, these costs just go up continuously. In 1997, we were looking at a $3.5 million building. Now we're looking at a $35 million building. If you look at the cost of the schools, the Fort Bank School in 2000 cost $9 million. The ATC cost $13 million in 01. The middle high school cost $80 million in 2016. Revere High School is being proposed at $500 million. So the costs are just crazy. It's crazy money. And again, to put the burden on individual taxpayers, which is what we have to do, makes us cognizant of these costs. And we, again, encourage you to go to the Finance tab on the Winthrop Fire Station website to take a look at this and see what the effect would be. All we're trying to do is to educate. We encourage any questions you may have. We are an open book. We are trying to be as transparent as possible. Again, winthropfirestation.com for all your questions, concerns. If you'd like to host a coffee hour and have us come to your house where it might be a more personal site where you'd be more free and apt to ask questions and concerns, we'd be more than happy to do that. There's a link for you to do that on the website. If you have any questions, there's a tab to just ask us any questions you want. We will get back to you either by phone or by email. The importance of this is astronomical, and it's kind of ironic that we're doing this today, being September 11th, and the historical significance of that day in our history. And our town loves our firefighters. I know we do. We have always supported them, and we're asking again for that support for this project.
Well said, Jim. I don't think I could have said that any better. So thank you very much, Winthrop. We're here to answer questions. The website's up on the screen. Please reach out. I've certainly sat down with a dozen residents so far. I know Jim and the chief have been answering questions, multiple hours daily, and we're here to answer any more that you might have. So please come tonight. Please take a look. Pretty much every Monday from now until the election, we'll have a meeting, answer questions, offer up more information, and then as we get a plan for the tenants, we'll get that out to everybody. So we're looking forward to moving forward, and we ask you to make sure you make an educated decision on November 7th, and thank you very much for your time.
Is the new Winthrop Fire Station webpage, winthropfirestation.com. This is an interactive website with an FAQ that mirrors the brochure that went out last week, that answers about 25 of the most common questions that we've all been asked about the new fire station. On the home page is a calendar of all of the events, meeting locations, and meeting times. Moving over to the existing fire stations is a link to the video presentation that we did of the existing stations with WCAT, the video and news tab that takes some snippets from some of the meetings that we had that we felt were important to share with you. One of the important tabs, most important tabs here is the Ask Questions, which gives residents an opportunity to ask a question of the Firehouse Building Committee. We ask your name, first and last, your email, confirmation, and your address, which is important because we want people from Winthrop and not people from outside the community to be asking these questions. And beginning September 7th, there will be a new link to this added to this top bar. It's a finance tab that's an interactive finance tab using a calculator feature that will enable residents to see the total net effect to their individual tax bill based on your home's assessed value. We go back to the home page. One of the things that we added was host a coffee hour. The Winthrop Firehouse Building Committee believes that community engagement is at the heart of every successful project. That's why we're thrilled to introduce a coffee hour initiative. We understand meaningful conversations often start over a cup of coffee, and we're eager to connect with you in a relaxed, friendly setting. By hosting one of our committee members for a coffee hour with you and your friends, you're taking an active role in shaping the future of our town. It's an important opportunity to learn more about the proposed fire station facility and to ask questions. Let's gather around, savor some coffee, and brew up a stronger Winthrop together. Sign up below and host your very own coffee hour. One other feature with regards to this website is there's a mass mailer going out to every residence in the town of Winthrop. It should be in your mailbox next week that will direct you to this website where all of this information will be available.